Ui Ungalale. I've been practicing all summer. There it is. Or Big Cinco, whatever you prefer. First, JT Daniels, watched him a ton when he was at USC. Came in and kind of right away picked up that system. Obviously got hurt, opened up the door for Keaton Slovis and never got his job back and transferred out. I thought we might see him earlier than we did. I know that with Mathis and Bennett there, I think all of us were thinking, what's wrong with JT Daniels? And then eventually they got to him those last four games, and they went from averaging 29 points a game to 37 points a game. So it was a significant jump when Daniels went into the game those last four games. And I think it kind of gave you an indicator of what's to come in Todd Monken's offense. They've had an entire offseason. Think about Monken. Comes to Georgia, ready to put in a new offense, doesn't know who his quarterback's going to be, and then they get a global pandemic where there's restrictions on no spring ball, limited opportunities throughout the summer, and now we're going to go out, we're going to have a big year in this first year in this system. Really tough to do. All things considered, I thought they did a pretty good job. Now we fast forward. You get through that. You finish those games with JT Daniels. Now you got an entire offseason, winter conditioning, spring ball, summer camp to build and grow around Daniels as your guy. As you know, following Georgia, they got backs and White and Cook. They've got some great receivers. That's probably the area to me they've improved the most, is they used to just have one receiver or two receivers. Now, based on recruiting, making that an emphasis, now they've got like 6 or 7 guys that I think have the ability or the potential to contribute. So I've heard Kirby talk about it. How good are they around him will tell you how good JT Daniels is going to be. But I really believe that having a second year in this system with Todd Monken and having somewhat of a normal offseason is going to allow these guys, I think, to take a pretty good jump. Now, I will say this. How about a tough start? I mean, you got an offensive line with some injuries, the center, and here comes Clemson. And Clemson's front four is back to being what Clemson's front four normally is. So that'll be an interesting challenge to me, is the line of scrimmage for Georgia's offensive line against one of the best defensive lines in the country. And then as far as Georgia's defense, what they do is they got to be themselves, which is tough to run on. Always one of the toughest teams to run on in the country. If that plays out in this game and you make Clemson one-dimensional, that's a huge advantage for Georgia's defense. Now, the concern that I have looking at this game without being able to study a lot of the film other than last year is the corner play. I mean, there's not a lot of depth, and Georgia's defense right now on the back end, they're breaking in a lot of new people, especially at corner. Ironically, Darian Kendrick, who played a lot, wasn't just on Clemson's roster. I mean, he was a starter, played a ton. He is starting at corner against his boys on the other side. So I think that's a game within the game in a position that looks like a concern for Georgia. They're going to a Clemson Tiger as a guy that they hope plays well. So stop the run first, try to get Ui Ungalale in obvious passing downs, and then mix up those coverages as much as you can to try to create hesitation and doubt, and then hope you get turnovers. Like, to me, that's going to be the key to the game for Georgia. What better way than to start it with matchup with Georgia and Clemson, two teams that think they're going to the playoff, two teams that think they're going to win a national championship. Their fan bases definitely do. It's great to see those two teams and those two brands collide in week one. We I think, are the lucky ones because we get to watch it. But I don't know. I look at this as anytime you get two powerhouses together like that without a game or two to warm up before meeting, who's done a better job in August of hitting each other and going through camp in a very physical way is probably the team that will come out of here with a win. So who wins at the line of scrimmage? And then which of these two quarterbacks? Both are expected to have great years. It's not so much who makes the play. I think it's who avoids the disastrous play, the pick six, or trying to make something happen week one, trying to live up to a certain expectation of your position and your name, and you force a ball and it gets intercepted and it costs you. So to me, it's the line of scrimmage and it's the quarterback who avoids the disastrous play. It'll probably be the team that wins it. Well, I think a few things. I've always looked at August football, and I think, man, I'm watching all these NFL preseason games, and even my kids, going through high school football. We got high school preseason games, where you can kind of work out the kinks. College football, unless you schedule a couple, quote unquote cupcakes, and then get into a big game, you really don't have preseason football. So that's why I was saying earlier, camp becomes vitally important. What you're doing, how physical you are, how your scrimmages are going, how much you try to make those scrimmages feel like a game. That's what you have to do when you're playing a team like Clemson or playing a team like Georgia with such high expectations. So I think the challenge is the speed of the game is not like you're breaking in the Citadel or, a team where you can gradually get ready for that second or third or fourth week. Here, you got to hit midseason form. I mean, you're jumping into the deep end of the pool, and you've got to be able to hope that your guys are understanding how fast this game will move. And if you've not done a good job of scrimmaging and getting that tempo and that speed in practice, then you're going to be caught, on national TV. Fortunately, Kirby Smart's been around. He gets it. His time in Georgia, of course, his time in Alabama as a coordinator, they play in heavyweight games early all the time, especially at Bama when he was there. And with Dabo, that's no different. So I think both these guys will do a good job of getting their teams ready. And then it just comes down to execution and going out and doing it. Well, I go back to 2017, which wasn't that long ago. I happened to call their Rose Bowl semifinal game when they looked like they were out of the game. Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma were all over. The game was over. And give credit to Jake Fromm, who was a young freshman, and Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb. And they kind of worked their way back into that game and went into overtime in heroic fashion. They won. That was one of my favorite games I've ever called. And then a week later, they go to Atlanta. I can't remember the score. It was like 14-3 or whatever it was at halftime. They're completely controlling the national championship. I mean, this is it. They're in Atlanta. They're going to get a championship. A former assistant from Nick Saban's finally going to beat him. And then Tua comes in and becomes Tua. He saves the day in that second half. And that one went into overtime. But that's how close they were, right? So I don't feel like, like when Mark Richt would go through this and fans would get on them about, man, there's always the potential, but they never live up to it. I don't know, man. I don't, as an outsider, as a guy who watches, I don't feel that with Georgia right now with Kirby. I feel like they've been close. I think it's more about, the quarterback situation last year was very unusual. We talked about that a little earlier. They seem to be settled at that spot. They seem to have recruited better at wide receiver, even with the injury to Pickens. They're okay. They've got some answers on the outside. They've lost a ton in their secondary. I mean, I think the total of 6 or 7 guys. So as we sit here, we haven't seen the ball in the air yet. That's a fair question mark. They've recruited well. They're going to replace it with good players, but a fair question mark as we go into this season until we see how they play against Clemson. So I'm a Kirby guy. I think he's doing great. I think he recruits great. I think he develops talent. I think they just got to, how it is to win a championship. You got to just catch the break here and there. And you got to stay healthy and all that boring stuff, but it's all true. It's just true. So they've got a team that's ready to go. And, it's a tough way to start with Clemson. But if they win that game, you start to look down that schedule. There's going to be some Georgia fans that are going to be hooting and hollering, thinking that this is the year again, because they've got a team that could be built to win a championship. But I don't sense any pressure or, man, Kirby, let's go, 6th year, pick it up. I mean, I think they've been close, and they just got to get over the hump.